Average eviction filings was 487 a month. Data from 2022 shows that most affected neighborhoods are located in council district C and E, and the trend is consistent. 3,865 evictions was observed in legal courts. Of that, 69% had favorable outcome due to the rights of counsel, legal intervention, and paired with financial assistance from the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Through the rights to counsel, attorneys, 3,500 individuals, along with their children, remain in their homes. From January to August of 2023, 4,235 tenants contacted SLLS seeking legal assistance. From that, 1,549 new clients was assigned to attorneys. 2,500 individuals and their children remained in their homes. On average, there are 122 phone calls or walk-ins that are received weekly for eviction. The next program that pretty much want to highlight is the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. This is for rental assistance, utilities assistance, as well as legal assistance for renters. This program did begin in 2021 and is ongoing. Total allocation that was received by the Office of Community Development was $105 million. That was through direct allocation through the state, also as well as reallocations from other communities based upon how fast we were spending the money. And we were able to receive more money because of that. We provided the rental assistance, utilities assistance, legal assistance, and this all is COVID-related funds. Eligibility is based upon loss of income, if it's a hardship, or imminent danger of eviction. The partners is Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, as well as Housing Authority of New Orleans. Housing Authority of New Orleans actually does the payments for us to the landlords for this program. Currently, there's a balance of $24 million. This grant has a termination date of September of 2025. And from that, that $24 million is the allocation is going to be used for rental assistance, which is utilities included, legal services included, as well as affordable housing. The regulations for this funding has changed to be able to include gap financing for affordable housing, but it's limited. We have to spend 75% of the allocation before we're able to actually allocate money for affordable housing. We have stabilized over 24,000 households with this assistance. And our next community outreach event, which we usually do throughout the city, where we're meeting the people where they are, they could come out and apply for assistance, and their pledges are made directly on spot, will be next week. We're hosting one on November the 15th and the 16th. So we will be having a press release on that on tomorrow. Our 2024 goals. Goal 1 is to ensure access to and increasing the production of affordable housing. 2, to strengthen partnership with current housing partners to increase the development of large-scale affordable housing unit. Also in next year, the housing plan will be released that we're currently working on with the Office of Community Asset and Investment. Goal 3 will continue to aid youth and elderly residents through our public service grants. 4, which I had mentioned about launching the rental rehab program to increase partnership with landlords, and this is based upon funding. Goal 5, administer the resilient communities and hometown revitalization programs. This is in partnership with the state to promote resilient community planning, business growth, and economic recovery. Goal 6 is to implement the Healthy Homes Ordinance that's to better track, providing that would happen in 2024. Goal 7, to promote home ownership, as home ownership is one of our successful program. That is the first time home buyer program. Currently, Louisiana is ranked number 5 as it relates to home ownership. So we are doing well in that area. Goal 8, to continue to assist our subrecipient with our housing opportunity for persons with AIDS. Goal 9, to collaborate with subrecipients to provide emergency solution grants to assist the city unsheltered population. Goal 10, to service community by providing the utilities eviction assistance through the ERAF. And goal 11, to invest in the current staff by providing internal and external value added training.
Ms. Brackett, hang on 1 second. Councilmember Thomas, you want to wait to the end as usual? Okay, because I'm so excited about Project Pipeline, I want to break in.
Yes.
Go ahead, start it. But
I want to thank you all for the gap financing of the 32 million, which we have a NOFA out. Well, the NOFA has ended. We're now scoring those proposals. We will have awards within the next 2 weeks. When I sat here last year, we had 17 projects in the pipeline that was supported by 41 million in funding. Currently, if you look at the chart, you will see those that are highlighted in the goldish color. Those are projects that are near completion, like 80 to 90%, some 95% completed. We had a close out one project that's totally completed. We have a closing that's coming up next week. And then we have a closing that we had on the 19th of October.
Ms. Cass, I want to stop you for a second because I just think the numbers are important here, and I'm hoping people will agree with this. You know, this means hopefully soon we'll have 310 affordable units coming online, and the total project cost with the bottom line looks like it's almost $400 million. But by the city supplementing basically 10% of that, there will be a total creation of almost 1,200 new affordable units in the city.
That is correct.
I mean, there's more work to be done. I don't want to plant a flag and say victory achieved, but I want to say this is significant progress of starting to climb the mountain.
And that is absolutely correct. Because of, the cost of construction, the insurance and interest rates, we have some projects that, they had to go back, and when they did their sources and use statement and based upon funding availability, some of them had to reduce some of the numbers of the units, right? And that didn't affect too much, but just like I have the project that's highlighted in blue, just to bring to your attention, that was a different project for a different site. That did not happen. So the developer, instead of saying, "Oh, we don't do anything," changed the site of that. The other site would have produced 70 units. Well, since it's a new site, it's only 49, and of that 42 will be affordable units.
And when the other places say contract pending, does that mean within the next year or so we should see them come online?
So I'm going to say by December 2024, because the way the NOFA was written, that this is for the NOFA, the 32 million was for the projects that's in the pipeline.
Right.
Being able to get their funding together, their financials together, so that they could be shovel ready within 6 months. So I know it's
the fantastic news. This is $32 million well spent.
Yes. So next we'll go to personnel. For personnel, we had 2023 actual was 32 staff. Well, not staff. What am I calling them? Positions. Currently for 2024 is 38. Proposed the 2023 budget summary. 2024 proposed budget. For 2023 projected actual for personal services was $6,168,116. Other operating was $59,544,576. 59 million, sorry, 544,576 for a total of $712,692. For the 2023 adopted budget for personal services, $7,723,053. Other operating, $116,511,644. For total for the adopted budget was $124,234,697. 2024 proposed budget, $5,881,687. Other operating, $89,949,652 for a total of $95,831,339. The variances under personnel services is $1,841,366. That is because of you have with the that includes the 2.5 merit, employee raises, the merit pay, but it also decreases in personal services due to positions that are vacancy that will not be filled in 2024. For the variance for other operating is $26,561,992. That is due to the decrease in our disaster and COVID-related grant closeout that we did for 2023 because our office is all grant funded, which has a total variance of $28,403,358. For our one-time funding, this is also on behalf of the council where you had the $8 million for gap financing, $1 million for the low barrier and the low barrier shelter, and $1 million to increase homeless outreach. From that, with the low barrier shelter, that is for renovations that will be needed. And this is in partnership with the health department, as well as the Office of Homeless Strategy and Policy. Also for the outreach, that is for an agreement to bring on more outreach personnel for the unsheltered population on the street. And that is through a contract, an agreement with Travelers Aid that's currently is being routed. So at this time, questions?
Councilmember Thomas.
First of all, thank you, and thank you for the work that you guys do. And you know, I sit down here and I listen to the reports, and I'm always thinking about what was, what is, and what could be. And when you were talking about the rights to counsel, that when you were going over that, that kind of jumped out at me in terms of legal services and people facing evictions. And in the line, it says data shows the most affected neighborhoods are located in District C and District E. Yeah, and I'm like, you know, Stephen Wonder could tell us that, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you look at this community. So as we having this conversation about affordable housing, and I don't want to ramble, but there are a couple of things that come to mind because I'm trying to kind of figure out what happened or what went wrong, right? I remember when I came back home from vacation, I was on the elevator in City Hall, and someone from the Landry administration was talking about a $700 million budget and how difficult the budget was for basic constituent needs and services. And I was listening to him and I said, oh, okay. And the city had like 100 and 70,000 fewer people, but a $700 million budget. And then I was remembering that the city had a $500 million budget and 500,000 people. So the city had a smaller budget with more people, but now the city had a bigger budget with fewer people, and they were trying to figure out how to provide certain services. So that was kind of confusing to me. And so how do you put together a bigger budget with fewer people and not have some of the basics, right? So then after I heard that conversation, I went kind of reading old stuff and old reports, especially when they talked about housing and services. And when you talk about affordable housing, I remember the Desire Housing Corporation, the Lower Nine Housing Corporation, Central City Housing Corporation, Neighborhood Housing Services, the Hoffman Housing, NDF, and a bunch that were strategically located in communities that when you look at those communities now that have been gentrified, you were like, well, hold on. There was, in some of them, there was a housing corporation that were in those cities that did housing with subsidies so that they could locate and stay in those communities, right? Well, as I'm sitting down and my little brain is working and thinking about what was and what is and what the conversation is, what happened to those housing advocates and housing corporations? And why aren't they still active within those communities? And let me tell you why, my little, I think about this, because these are the communities, many of them that are being gentrified, where working class people are being pushed out, where the biggest advantage to affordable housing, and when those entities operated in those communities, they weren't advocating for housing, they had an office in the neighborhood.
Right.
They had workers in the neighborhood. So how did they get pushed out? And then Councilman Jerusalem, well, he's gone now. Councilman Green. So the reason to me why that was important, because post Hope 6 and post Katrina, something happened, especially when you talk about C&E, right? So the demographic was shifted. And post Katrina, there were only 2 communities that had enough multi-unit complexes to take up, especially the big 6 downtown, where people would be serviced because all the people serviced were downtown. So that was New Orleans East and Algiers. So all of those people are shifted to those communities. And so they're struggling for affordable housing, but every nonprofit is still downtown. Every advocacy agency is still downtown. Not in their neighborhoods, where they used to have these organizations in those neighborhoods that knew the neighborhood, knew the people, and would access for housing or subsidies or affordable housing, including home ownership in those neighborhoods. What happened to that? How do we get back to that? And how do we create more affordable housing in gentrified communities where values are through the roof right now? I know that I said a whole lot, but you were shaking your head, so you were kind of following me in terms of the history of it.
Right.
So what happened to those groups that were there?
So some of those agencies that you call are no longer doing the housing like they were doing. Central City, I remember.
They went away like I did?
They went part away.
Oh, okay. All right.
But no, seriously, a lot of them, they're not doing, their scope changed. They're not doing the same thing that they were doing then. I don't even know if Central City even is still existing from a housing standpoint, right? We do have some that still exist.
But that neighborhood is flipped.
But that's
you got $3,500 a month rent on a corner of Felicity and Saratoga.
Yes.
That's crazy, man, right? Yes. Especially, you know, the history of that neighborhood, right? Yes. So though they don't exist anymore, they changed their mission.
I'm gonna say it's both.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it's both.
So how do we get back then to, especially looking at communities, especially given that we have a few communities that haven't been totally gentrified yet, right? That where there's a housing stock and there are lots there, right? How do we set up more strategic partnerships with agencies that have identified, even if they don't all have their office in the neighborhood,
right.
Even if the people who work for them don't want to live in the neighborhood, they've identified that neighborhood as their strategic neighborhood. How do we do that?
So we do have to, we're gonna have to incentivize them. We're gonna, and when I say that is making sure, you know, that they understand what resources there are for the community, right? And making sure they're advocating for that. They don't have to be in the actual neighborhood, but if they are the advocate for that neighborhood and an advocate for the people, then yes, we
Breaking news, just between us, I'm gonna let you in on this secret, right? If we don't find a way for the majority population or demographic in this city to have home ownership and affordable housing, we're gonna be like parts of Detroit,
yeah.
DC, and Oakland in the next few years. And so people talk about the culture resides with the people, and the people are the culture, right? People say that, but I don't know they believe it. Because they don't know the history of it. They wasn't bred in it. So if we don't find a way to do that quickly, New Orleans is going to be so watered down that we're going to be just what the governor-elect said he wants us to be Nashville and Charleston. Well, everybody I know from Nashville and Charleston wish they was us. Until we ain't no more. So how do we begin to target certain communities that were targeted before and say, y'all can't have this?
We used to have place-based strategies too.
Okay, so used to be mean we can,
But we can go back to
Okay.
that and directing those resources to those neighborhoods.
bingo, that's a solution. We'll take a deeper dive on that.
Mhm.
Because the scatter approach ain't working.
Right.
The scatter approach is just gonna push all those people say they're fighting for to the edge of the city. Because every nonprofit and major organization that's getting money or wanting money to deal with my little cousins and my auntie and my family, they ain't nowhere near them. So we have to do place-based if we're gonna save them. Thank you.
Can you explain to the public what the increased homeless outreach of $1 million is? What's the scope of services and what would the result be at the end? Many members of the public ask, and very understandably, what is going on with regards to continually giving money and not seeing the results that I think the public needs to see? So why, for example, is Travelers Aid contracted with as opposed to the new homeless strategy and policy office?
So they are. So the funding came by way of the Office of Community Development, but it is for Nathaniel Fields' office for the which is the homeless department. Travelers Aid was chosen because they're the ones that are out on the street. It was through an RFP to be able to do the street outreach for the encampments and all of that with the homeless plan that's going on. That's what that money is going for, the additional outreach team to assist with that.
So could you explain to the public what the outreach is? Or is that something that Nathaniel would have to do?
Yes.
What is the result gonna be? And what time period are we talking about the spending of another $1 million?
Wait, what time period?
What time period?
This is for 1 year.
I know. So, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You said 1 year.
Yes.
So at the end of the year, based on the million, what will be the result?
So I'm not exactly
And if you have to get back
sure.
to me, you can
Yeah,
get back.
I would have to get back because that does fall under Nate's Mr. Fields purview. So I will get back to you on that. But just to let you know, the outreach is just like the outreach teams now. They actually go out into the different encampments. They do assessments. And they're assisting the unsheltered population with getting housed, getting the services that they need.
So after $1 million for the year, there's no number in mind. It's just that the outreach will continue.
Yes. So that's only part of it. I'm not sure how Mr. Fields' office is going to continue to be funded. I'm not sure about that. From an OCD standpoint, we do have allocate funds for outreach also, but that's by way of our emergency solution grant,
Our being the Office of
the
Community
Office of
Development.
Community Development.
Can you describe what the OCD's outreach is?
It's the same. The outreach teams
How much is spent? How much will be spent for OCD outreach next year?
So it's not just the outreach. From the Office of Community Development, Emergency Solution Grant, we get $1.2 million. Out of that $1.2 million, by regulations, 60% of it goes to shelter operation. So from shelter operation off the bat, because we are grant funded, that goes towards the shelter operations for our different shelters for families and women and children. Your Ozanam Inn is funded through that. Let's see. The New Orleans Justice Alliance. So those shelters and the Loberia shelter. And then the rest of the money is divvied up through rapid rehousing. And under that rapid rehousing is your outreach team. Different agencies have outreach, and their outreach is actually going into, they're doing street outreach, or they're doing the outreach within their facilities where they're connecting the unsheltered population to housing.
At the end of the day, I wouldn't mind knowing, and I don't really know how to get this information, how many different agencies are doing outreach? Who's doing the needle exchange? Who's doing this feeding do you all do feeding?
No,
Does anybody really do feeding?
So yes, you have,
Regularly? I mean, like they eat 3 meals a day. Does anybody visit 2 or 3 times a day and provide food?
so there's feeding that is happening by Grace by the Green Light.
How often is that?
I'm not sure. I will have to get that information to you.
Only everyday breakfast, so
Okay.
one meal a day.
Okay.
Okay, it's not on Sundays. It's 6 days a week, right? Okay, so 6 meals for the week.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then you have,
Maybe you could give me that summary, because I don't have that summary, and if somebody
I
asks
can give you
if
that
maybe a
summary.
member of their family is unhoused or something like that,
I can give you that summary.
I think that maybe your office or whoever's office it is can give a summary that would give me an idea of who's doing the needle exchange and when it is, who's actually doing the feeding and when it is. Sanitation is doing a cleanup in encampments at least once every 2 weeks or so. I know that. But I'd also like to know, for example, when the portalets are changed, if they're changed at all.
Okay.
I went by the other day and they were terrible, but I mean, I understand. You have people from the streets who come and use it, so that's all.
And I will be able to get that information to you. But it's not just OCD. That comes through the health department and all. So what I would do is get with everybody and we could get those numbers to you.
Okay, I'm very interested in the
Different
feeding-
services.
in the feeding program,
Okay, the feeding.
the feeding,
that's
the
the
different
one that's-
encampments or
Okay.
whatever might be the case as to where people are being fed, in case somebody asks, so that I can tell them.
Okay,
Bottom line. And also, maybe it'll help the public, those who feel that they're doing a good job, to stop dumping food the way they dump it in unopened pans where rats hang out. And then people are saying that we want to bring something that stops that from happening, but we might discourage people from feeding. I would like to know when this feeding takes place. That's all.
I will provide that information to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, council member. All right, let's get to public comment. You guys have been doing great. All right, Monique Blossom, Mr. Burnside, Sarah Omajala, Frank Southall, and Joe Herron Mueller.
Good afternoon, Monique Blossom, Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center. I want to thank Ms. Brown and the entire staff of the Office of Community Development for all of their hard work and dedication over the past year. We're really thankful for your commitment to stabilizing and revitalizing neighborhoods and managing that federal grant money to fund affordable housing and other crucial housing services and programs. On Right to Counsel, I'm very happy to see that the funding's been adjusted to account for inflation, so it's now at 2.4 million. But I think over the coming years, we can look at expanding this program. Your statistics showed what a huge success it is. And for brevity point, I won't go into the statistics that you already showed. But when you look at a city like New York City, where Right to Counsel started, and that's what cities like New Orleans look to as models, their defense attorneys are doing 48 cases per year, whereas Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center's eviction defense attorneys are doing that much every 2 months. And so not only could we be preventing more evictions, preventing more families from becoming unhoused, but we could also be taking better care of our attorneys and reducing those caseloads to make sure that they can properly serve the community. So I know that that's not what we're asking for the 2024 budget, but I'd like to continue that conversation with y'all going into the 2025 budget, thinking ahead. And so I'm also here to speak on behalf of the Big Easy deal. Louisiana Fair Housing is supporting this, and we're asking for a $99 million allocation, a fund balance to address our desperate housing needs. One of the buckets is affordable rental housing construction, and I agree with Councilmember Giarrusso that that was a wonderful way to spend 32 million. But while we're anticipating those, all 1,200 units of those being ready in December 2025, let's get more started now, because we know that we need more than 1,200 affordable units to address the crisis that we have. We're also asking for a bucket for owner occupied rehab that's going to help keep low-income homeowners living in their homes and make really necessary repairs for their own health and safety. The renter occupied rehab will help repair our rental stock in exchange for a period of affordability. And then lastly, the anti-displacement fund will help support families who must relocate due to emergencies, or when we are taking more drastic measures to shut down slum properties. We're gonna have to relocate those people. We're gonna have to support them in the process. And I can't find the number of how much money we spent supporting residents that were taken out of the Oakmont apartment in Algiers, but I know that it was significant. And so I thank all of council. You've shown your dedication to addressing our housing needs with the recent creation of the Housing Trust Fund. That's it for me. Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Thomas, yeah.
Just in thinking about the history of certain disparate communities here, like I grew up in the Lower Ninth Ward, right? But it was credited for having some of the highest home ownership statistics of any Black neighborhood with distinct boundaries in the country. Right? We wasn't poor, we lived in little bitty stuff, but it was ours. Why wouldn't we have more money dedicated to home ownership, especially given the population in this community and the wages in this community? Why is it focused on renting when we have a history here, even in the poor Black community, for home ownership? Why so much for renting?
For my own advocacy efforts, we're working to catch those people that are most closely going to fall into homelessness, and that's more likely to be low-income renters. So that's where I've targeted these specific asks, but we are supportive of anything that helps keep homeowners in their homes and creates more homeowners and brings opportunities to those people. So I'd be happy to work with you on those kinds of things.
Okay, so you're just really following your mission, but you're not opposed to the others.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Mr. Burnside. Ms. Omajala, Mr. Southall, Mr. Heron Mueller. A module.
It's hard for me to be energetic and positive this late in the day, Councilman Green, but if you wanted to ask me questions about feeding homeless, I've eaten in the homeless lines and could answer some of them. And if Oliver Thomas wanted to ask me about my ideas of home ownership, I would love the chance to reply. But in regards to the Office of Housing Policy and Community Development, first of all, it's my understanding that asset management or something was going to produce some sort of public facing dashboard that was going to tell everybody in the city. And they got it all the way to almost ready, because I think the property management guy sat here maybe a year ago saying that it was all done except for a few tweaks, and then it's gone. We don't hear no more about it, and nobody knows who's got what. God knows, I'd love to know. All right, so then we've got this idea that a small landlord has 4 to 5 properties is not one I can agree with, because a property isn't defined. If you have a small landlord who's got 4 or 5 bedrooms, he's small. If you've got a landlord who's got 4 or 5 units, probably small. But property could have 100 friggin' units on it. The idea that somebody's got 4 or 5 properties and he's a small landlord, I'm not buying in. Let's see, what's next down here. 122 phone calls or walk-ins received weekly. You guys tied into 311, 911, do a little outreach through those systems, or do you have your own separate little system? It's not a rhetorical question, because 311 advertises itself as the gateway to city government, and you guys are part of city government, and God knows we need as much help from city government as we can get. Okay, so the numbers. I didn't have the time to do all the numbers, but I certainly had the time to do 2 of them, or 3 of them, as the case may be. Sacred Heart Apartments looks like a very good deal for us. If I've done the math correctly, we subsidize them like $13K an apartment, which is like ridiculously small compared to everybody else. The average is $30K an apartment, if my math's right, or unit or dwelling or whatever the heck this is. Affordable units is for units. And that's important because there's a difference between units and property that we're going to run into right now. Down here at the bottom one, LL9, 2, St. Cloud Gardens, phase 2, and whatever it is. The numbers I have from my reading of this 288-page contract, and the numbers I received in an email recently from a dedicated, hardworking city employee aren't 10,129. They're like 11 point something or another, 5.7 or something. I rounded it off to 12, and I rounded 39 off to 40. And if you do all that lazy math, it's 300,000 per unit. But I happen to know from reading the contracts that there's 2 units on each property. So that's $600,000 per property. And the reason this matters is because if you go to One Stop and you look for property, the builder of this currently is saying that it's going to cost him $300,000 per property. So we shift from units to property, and we got a property at 600,000 that we're paying the man. It turns around and tells safety and permits that when he filed for the permits, he's only going to pay $300,000 to build it. Now I understand that the building permit was pulled in 22, and I understand that inflation exists. So who knows? Maybe it's going to cost him 400 instead of 300, but he's still pulling in an extra 200 that we don't know where it's going. It just disappears on 20 properties. So 4 to 6 million is not in existence to my understanding, despite my several weeks effort to understand. And I would like to think that I'm not an idiot, although I'm here standing here talking, so maybe I am. If we're here on page 15, we see that other operating, you had projected actuals of like $60 million, and you were budgeted for like 120. So you didn't spend half your money, and only God knows why, because you don't bother to tell us. And that's sort of what irritates me, is a lot of things aren't told. We're not told why on page 17, none of this is actually spent, although you've had it for a year. I mean, we understand procurement's a pain in the ass, but is it really 12 months to spend money? Because if it is, maybe we should go to a two-year budgeting cycle or something. I don't know. Thank you.
Sarah, Frank, and Joe.
Good afternoon. I've also noticed that this computer over here went to sleep. So I think you've been here a really long time. Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Moshla. I'm the director of Bear Louisiana, also a member of the Big Easy Budget Coalition. And I really have to thank the Office of Community Development for doing a lot with what you'll find is not enough. That's what we are going to be arguing. So the first thing I'll just remind folks about was that in April, the members of the Big Easy Budget Coalition actually presented a package of prevention focused investments that should be made using ARPA dollars. And every single council member, well, almost every single council member, because not everybody was here that day, said that that's great. We should put more money into those things, direct quotes. These are good ideas. We should have more affordable housing. We should have more ways to make sure that owners, people who live in their homes that are at substandard should have a way to get those repaired. Renters should have a way, renter occupied housing should be, the money for that should be increased. And so we had that conversation, and then ARPA dollars were used to plug budget holes and buy hundreds and hundreds of vehicles and other things we pushed back on, because ARPA is for recovery. It's for COVID recovery and addressing inequity. And what COVID pandemic showed us was that we have so many inequities. And so those budget holes that I was talking about didn't actually materialize. So now we have this surplus. And while the city is doing surprisingly well after the pandemic, the people are not doing well. And in fact, we did a survey, Vera did a survey where we surveyed nearly 400 people, and 97% of those people said we spend way too little on safe and affordable housing. Those are people across we have the breakdowns. We're happy to share those at a later date, but the breakdown is we don't spend enough money on it. And what we know is that housing is a rising tide. Everyone talked about rising tides today and how they lift all boats. That's what housing can be for people. So the big thing is that council has the power to allocate the 62 million for increasing affordable housing, the 10 million for rental rehab program, the 10 million for the owner occupied program, and then the 17 million for the anti-displacement fund, which is $99 million. The council has the money for that. The council could, I'm looking over there at Councilmember Giarrusso and Amy, like we could just put that in the council amendments and make sure that OCD gets that amount of money. And I ask all council members to support that, because that is actually what we need, and we really need to budget to need. That is what the people of New Orleans are telling us. Also, the city has the money. We can find that money in that elusive rainy day fund, or maybe in the fund balance, or maybe in the BP money, or maybe in the Wisner money. We have the money, we should do it. And then to address some of the comments that were made earlier about the city not just spending money on police, I agree. The city does not just spend money on police. However, we spend the biggest chunks of our money on police. And the reason we talk about that, we do. And the reason we talk about that so often is %20. So I actually could not hear that, but the reason that I'm raising that point specifically and saying that, yes, the city has lots of things enumerated that we do for public safety and public health. The reason we talk about the police funding and the reason that we talk about us not having the right approach is that we've been having this conversation for so many years. We have the conversation over and over again. We have to do something different. We have to put more money where people say that they need it. And people are saying they need housing. They're saying we need youth services. That's what they spend a lot of time saying. And if we don't do that, then we're not actually listening to the community. And these are actually our tax dollars. So I'll leave that there, and you'll see me again tomorrow saying the same thing about youth.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Southall and Mr. Heron Mueller and Ms. Spears, I'm just going to make an executive decision that we put the online comments online. We'll just post them. Oh, there's two. Okay, we'll read those then. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Southall. Sorry.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yasin Frank Southall. Most folks just call me Frank. I'm the organizing community engagement manager at Jane Place. I'm a member of the Big Easy Budget Coalition. I really want to say thank you genuinely to the Office of Community Development, because as they know from my many emails, I've had a lot of critiques. I feel like the direction this department is moving is really great. Similar to what I said last week about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, I think it's a really good step, right? Like I have lost here working this job and I feel it coming back due to the improvements that we are making in this city. I also want to say thank you to OCD for working with Nora Hano to increase all affordable housing opportunities and being innovative. I have a few critiques about our Spanish speaking population out there served, but I'll get to that in the email. However, we need massive investment in affordable housing. As I mentioned, Jane Place is a member of the Big Easy Budget Coalition, and we support the plan to inject over 100 million into affordable housing development, homeless services, rental assistance, and other services for working class, primarily Black homeowners in our city. Housing is the most critically neglected area of socioeconomic development in our city. If we want to tackle issues facing unhoused folks, we must massively renovate and generate more housing stock fast and provide massively increased opportunities for working class Black New Orleanians to thrive. Ongoing, we need to generate rental assistance funds for our residents struggling to make their budgets work. We need a solid relocation fund for residents facing slumlord conditions that aren't immediately repairable. This is controversial, but we must step away from austerity, scarcity thinking when it comes to housing. Housing is at the core of public health and also public safety. Miss Ann, who lives next door to me, is a person who keeps me safe. It's not, the New Orleans Police Department. I'm going to be real. Sorry, Miss Ann, if you're watching for shouting you out, but it's true. Miss Ann will keep anyone who's up to no good off your block. And so we know by preserving Black home ownership via owner-occupied rehab funds, that's how we protect Black homes. Councilmember Thomas, to respond to your question, when it comes to the most vulnerable of the folks who are facing homelessness, it's renters. It's those 20, 30-something-year-old single mothers. And so that's one of the reasons why we focus on quality rental issues, because that's the bulk of who we're hearing from. But as I mentioned before, previous times, we do hear from Black homeowners who are facing displacement due to not being able to repair their homes. And so that's one of the reasons why I believe we need a deeper owner-occupied rehab fund. Lastly, I want to say any funds generated by the city, we believe for new housing should be within the land trust. Jane Place doesn't want to manage that because we don't have the ability nor time, but we believe that those funds need to stay within the community. And the land trust model is a way to do it. It's been proven across the world. I went to Spain recently and they're investing heavy money into just keeping those funds for the people. I think that's it. Again, fund the people. Let's move away from austerity. Use the fund balance, use the Wisner funds. If we make these investments now, then 20 years, we won't have to talk about why there's so many unhoused people in Duncan Plaza who are in their 20s. If we can all see the difference over the last decade in who's in Duncan Plaza, I know that because I've been out there feeding folks. Councilmember Green, if you want to come out there on Tuesdays, community kitchen, like you said you want to be invited?
I want to be invited.
Okay.
I look forward to that opportunity. When's the next time you're gonna do it?
Next Tuesday.
See, they eat every day. I can't figure out what this pattern is. It's just not clear to me why everybody is saying everybody's being fed. And if you want to do something that stops people from food dumping, it's going to stop everybody who's feeding the homeless. I can't find the people who are doing that regularly. You say next Tuesday, today is Thursday. So 4 days from now, you'll be there feeding. All right, just let me know.
There's a need for more people to feed.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that from like we did the Monster Mash a couple weekends ago where it was an outreach event. And we were literally giving food away mainly to unhoused folks because people were just hungry. So there's a need for more feeding opportunities, but I can get with you if you want to come out there. Definitely, I can send you email if you want to come help cook. It happens in 7th Ward at like 10 a.m. But yeah, I can get with you about that. But they also do Neo Exchange out there as well. So, but thank you all so much. I've overspoke. God bless you all, and thank you all for listening.
Thanks, Frank. We appreciate it. All right, Jeff.
Thank you, council member, and I'm Joe Mueller from Unity of Greater New Orleans. I want to thank the Office of Community Development for their work there. And one of the most important city agencies among many that we work with to address homelessness in New Orleans. We're really glad to see the improvements that are taking place at the Low Barrier Shelter, and want to see that continue to be used increasingly to reduce street homelessness, and to get people into rapid rehousing so that it can really work to create flow in our system, which is what can more effectively address people's homelessness in a short period of time. We are also a member of the Big Easy deal and support the request for $99 million to be spent addressing homelessness. And the reason for that is because despite an enormous investment in housing housing hundreds of homeless folks in the past year, we continue to see a rise in homelessness. And the reason for that is the exorbitant cost of housing, especially to people making at or below 20% of area median income, and the high cost of rent for those folks. So an investment like Councilman Giarrosa, like you said, of 32 million is fantastic, and we need to see more of that, because 1,000 new affordable units is just not yet meeting the scale of what we need. And so we think that investing in housing, deeply affordable housing, that really targets that below 20% of area median income demographic is what's going to have the greatest impact on reducing inflow of homelessness, of new folks into homelessness, and thereby reducing street homelessness as well.
Thank you very much. All right, 2 online comments, Ms. Spears. Thank you to OCD for your patience.
The first one is from Erica Zucker on behalf of Workplace Justice Project. My name is Erica Zucker, and I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy for the Workplace Justice Project at Loyola Law Clinic. The WJP represents low-income workers to recover earned unpaid wages and other labor employment matters. We are also a member of the Big Easy Budget Coalition and are working on our coalition partners to ensure that the city's budget addresses the needs of our most vulnerable residents and remains transparent and accountable for the city's needs. The city's needs for additional safe, affordable housing continues to grow. Many of our clients, workers toiling for low wages, often working multiple jobs to support their families, are forced to live in untenable conditions or far from their jobs in order to make ends meet. We ask that the council continue to engage with the Big Easy budget deal to work to address the affordable housing crisis. And last but not least is from Stephen Kennedy. And he says, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the work of Ms. Tara Johnson and her team at OCD. As this council is aware, the need for affordable housing continues to be an ongoing issue because of the huge demand. However, OCD is working with developers like myself and others who are seeking to build quality affordable housing. I'm passionate about building quality affordable housing for families because I was born and raised in the former St. Bernard Project. I've come to learn over the years that putting together an affordable housing development is very complex and can take years to build. But for the financial assistance that government entities like OCD provides, it gets projects closer to creating a balanced development budget. Across this country, the number of minorities who are developers are approximately 2%. So having a partnership with the city through OCD gives an opportunity for minority developers to build capacity while serving the need of our city. It is my hope that more resources can be allocated to OCD in the future, which will help create more sustainable communities. Thank you. That's the end of the online comment.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Thomas, you had your button.
No, just especially for you, Councilman Giarrusso, you know, this has been an ongoing conversation. You and I have had private conversations about this piece, and it's important. We got disagreements maybe on what, why, who, how, and where, but this is one of those issues that can't be political. People can't use it as a political football. And it's one of those issues that we've got to find a way to come together on the same page about this, right? Because whatever the percentage, whatever the amount, there has to be a negotiation about a number to deal with this, because I'm watching history. I'm watching our communities. And I'm watching especially what's happening in communities that have the same demographics as New Orleans, right? And so at some point, there has to be something with the administration, us and the advocates to come together to do something serious really with this. And I think maybe it has to be in spite of our differences and because of the fact that it's a real issue. So I would just hope that, especially, and I know you and I have talked about it before, I know you want to do something significant, that they have to get in the room and really come up with a way to do this, because the stabilization of this community and this indigenous population is in jeopardy if something does not happen. And why can I say that? Because it's happened in other communities. And for folk who need to know, maybe a month or so ago, I participated in the Wealth Conference with the Congressional Black Caucus. In historical African American communities, only 3 cents of our dollar is staying in our community right now. Only 3 cents. It's down from what people thought it was before. The Hispanic community has advanced beyond us by 10% in home ownership, right? They've moved ahead of us in our community in terms of per capita household wealth. So in a city that wants to be safe, in a city that wants to be wholesome, in a city that wants to be known for something more than tourism in the French Quarter, if we don't stabilize our renters and our homeowners, this is not going to be the same city that we brag about and we talk about. And I think that the advocates are right. We have to take a large chunk of money and say it's dedicated to this population. Now, what that number is going to be, we're going to need your leadership. We're going to need the people in here to decide that. But if it does not happen now, the numbers, when you look at it from the data center and the national centers that track wealth and demographic, is we're losing ground in terms of generational wealth, stable housing, and home ownership at a rate that if we don't begin to do something in historical communities like this, there's no amount of subsidy that's going to close the wealth gap, right? There's no amount of grants that's going to help close that gap so those communities can be sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, maybe one thing we can work offline, it is late in the day, is, this is a great list of the almost 1,200 units that are come online. Are there more that are going to be in the pipeline for 2025 and gap financing? And let's start having that conversation.
Yes, because we will have a NOFA again the first quarter of next year, but that is based upon our entitlement funds.
Okay. Well, I guess great. And then let's look at all of that. I think the council member's point, you heard my questions earlier about IDB and FANO. And I mean, I think there's going to be multiple ways we're going to have to skin this cat, and we want to work with everybody in making that happen. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right. Nora, you're up. Thank you all.
Nora, move adoption. Bye.
I think that, Nora. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
may I, say something before we start?
Absolutely.
To the folks who I know at Nora, I just want to tell you all that I am going to be leaving before you start because I'm a speaker at an event and it's kind of hard for me to not show up for it. But I wanted to say that I see the work of Nora in the community and I appreciate it, whether it be in Pontchartrain Park, whether it be on Broad Street, you know, at business, other locations. I appreciate the work that you're doing in terms of kind of redeveloping our city on a widespread basis like that. So as I walk out, it's not because of the lack of interest and recognition of the importance of what Nora does, because it's really appreciated. But I will say, I appreciate the fact that you've reached out to small and emerging business owners, such as in the development of the properties that are being developed in the Pontchartrain Park subdivision, the couples, the families that are doing some of that development. But you're a valuable agency and I appreciate your work greatly.
Thank you very much, council member. I'm gonna just go ahead and start, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Jeruso, I got your message loud and clear.
We're proud of your work. It's
That
just the end
number
of
of
the day.
pages, end of the day.
Yeah.
I will be, as staff reminded me, we're last, but we'll be fast, Councilmember Thomas. All right, so just to highlight, New Orleans Redevelopment Authority, quasi-governmental entity. We serve as a catalyst for revitalization of the city, partnering in affordable and equitable strategic developments throughout the entire city, celebrating neighborhoods and honoring traditions. Our organizational structure is we have a staff of 29 full-time funded positions, of which we have 3 vacancies. And just to highlight some of the agency accomplishments, our 4 major areas is our residential development. We have been developing homeownership opportunities throughout the city over the course of the past several years. Our concentration over in the past year, really, we've been concentrated in the Gentilly neighborhood, also with units that we have currently under construction in District E. We have a map that some of the council members have before them that outlines where we have been developing throughout the city. That development really calls for us providing land at a deep discount in exchange for developers developing homeownership opportunities for individuals. We also provide financing up to $100,000, of which some of it stays in as a development subsidy. The other balance of that can be provided to the homeowners as further down payment assistance. We've highlighted some homes in Pontchartrain Park, New Orleans East, that are currently under construction. And what we also have is that our houses also provide for resilience. Resilience is us being the first quasi-governmental entity in the state who adopted fortified as part of our standards. We did that about 3 years ago, but not just the fortified roofing. We also do the entire fortified structure, which includes the windows, the doors, all of that. And in addition to that, we require some stormwater interventions for our sites, for properties that we owned, and the work that we have our development partners doing. On the affordable rental front, we have units that we just broke ground with at St. Bernard Circle. And I can't highlight the fact that we've went out perhaps about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, made that major acquisition of property along St. Bernard and North Claiborne, recognizing that that site was critical. That site we viewed as the back door to the French Quarters, but also a neighborhood rich in culture where there was a need for more affordable housing opportunities. And we are creating that. Although this is the first phase of 3 phases to come, we started with the rental component, which we broke ground on a few weeks ago. I'm happy to say that that project resulted in a joint venture, which never had happened previously with the developer that was working on that. So it's a joint venture with Paul Irons Company, New Orleans Property Restorations, and with HRI. On the other additional affordable housing opportunities we provide is that we also make lots available for small developers or individuals who are interested in developing and making affordable housing opportunities available, either through rental and or through home ownership. We do that by making land available, again, at a deep discount. This past year, we made an award of 23 and this year in 2023, we awarded 99 properties to 9 different developers, which we hope over the course of the next year and a half to 2 years will result in 147 rentals and 21 affordable home ownership opportunities. We also make properties available through our market rate through our auction, where we auction property and make land available. The requirement with that is that those individuals have to develop and build a home on that. In some instances, they are making market rate housing. In other instances, we've seen them develop rental units on some of those properties. We've just highlighted a couple of those in the Milneburg, in Little Woods. The next one is in St. Roch, which was a double that was created and will be serving as a rental opportunity. And then one of the other things that we completed just this year, maybe about a month to 6 weeks ago, was the market value analysis. We've been using that as a tool, not only the redevelopment authority, but other governmental officials to get a sense of what's going on in the market. We use that as a comprehensive tool to evaluate where we need to put more resources and or other interventions need to be made for the government. We use that as our tool. This is the third iteration of the full plan. There was an interim iteration that was done during COVID, but this was just produced. We had some of the council members' staff that was there when the market value analysis was announced. We will make the reinvestment fund has offered to do that again virtually for council members and some of their staff. We'll just need to coordinate with you as you might see fit to do that. And then just gives the market value analysis, just gives a recap of what the market has, what has taken place in the market since the last market value analysis. And you can see what they looked at as far as medium sales, some of which were pure land transactions, other of which included the sales of homes as well. And just to highlight an overview of our work and what we've done over the last several years and disposing of Nora-owned properties to about 3,200, of which we've made direct investments in affordable housing, and that's dollars of $42 million. Land subsidies on top of that is an additional 14 million, which also leveraged about 100 million in leverage dollars to those transactions. On our commercial revitalization, I am really happy to talk about our work. We're wrapping up our commercial corridor gap financing with our most recent project, which is the Dewdrop Inn in Central City. We are one of 2 major investors in that, public investors in that project, which is soon to open sometime toward the end of this year. You saw the photos before of the before, but this gives you the after of where they are. They're wrapping up some of the items and looking forward to a major grand opening. And on our Facade Renew program, this is where we provide support businesses with facade improvements with grants between 75% and upwards of 100% of full grant funding for $50,000. We've worked across various corridors throughout the city of New Orleans. Councilmember King can recall is that we just recently expanded that in 2022 to cover the Algiers, of which we were able to complete a large number of projects along the Algiers corridor. We completed 17 projects in total over the course of the last year. We have additional 6 that spread across the city that are pending final approval upon a receipt of funding. And just highlighting some of the befores and afters, as you can see, of some of those locations along Algiers and what those businesses look like after some of that work took place and our facade improvements had taken place at that. I got to tell you, council member, I'm extremely excited and proud of our small business assistance grant program. That was a small business assistant grant program where we provided grants up to 25,000 for businesses that opened up are right before COVID or right in the midst of COVID. Those businesses that were along low to mod income corridors, we made awards and provided up to 630,000 in grant funding, and that was direct grant funding to 33 businesses across the city. And the council member Thomas, you would be happy to know that 16 of the 33 businesses were coming from the New Orleans East neighborhood.
I'm happy.
Yes, yes. And we were excited about doing that. And the response that we got from all of those businesses was good, and how this impacted their business. And to some extent, when they came by to pick up the check, they said this was the difference between us keeping our doors open and closed. So I'm excited about having done that and proud of the work we've done. This next slide just gives a recap of our commercial revitalization, how much property we have helped to develop across the city on the commercial side, which was a little more than 750,000 square feet, a direct investment of $15 million, which leveraged $124 million and resulted in 835 permanent jobs. And as our work that we've been doing along the land stewardship arena, really we started early on with our NORA investments on NORA-owned lots. We were the recipient of the national the city's subrecipient of the National Disaster Resilience Grant, of which we were able to complete 194 community adaptation projects in the Gentilly neighborhood. That results in a stormwater storage, combined storage of water of more than 568,000 gallons, and improving the greening around all of those communities, but also educating individuals on the importance of how we live with water and how we help to mitigate some of that in our properties. And you see examples of that throughout the Gentilly neighborhood. And this next slide just provides for an outline, just an overview of all our work that we've done on the land stewardship front, whether it's property maintenance over the course of the past 10 plus years, whether it's our lot next door discount for individuals who are eligible. That's our direct investment in our growing home program, some of our greening that we've invested in our NORA-owned lots, and that totals of 234 acres of enhanced green space. I know that everyone in this council is aware, and the general public, that NORA was a depository of a large number of former road home properties. I'm happy to say that we have hit the number where we have disposed of over 5,000 of those properties since we have received them. The breakdown of how we've disposed of them is about 45% have been through market rate housing, 34% through lot next door, 20% through affordable housing, and 1% through land stewardship. There is a remaining balance of about 1,100 properties. We have a disposition strategy to dispose of over 80% of that over the course of the next 3 years, recognizing that there'll be a small amount of that we'll have to work with the community as to how we dispose of that. But there's also a recognition is that the balance of those properties are in areas that we will require additional subsidy for us to develop them and bring them back in commerce. A new tool that NORA embarked upon with the city of New Orleans was the redevelopment framework, whereby the city provided property and awarded property to the New Orleans Redevelopment Authority in a partnership to empower NORA to lease and manage the redevelopment of underutilized city-owned properties. There are several of those that we were the recipient of. The one I'm highlighting right now is the one at the Louisiana Avenue Firehouse. Please share with Councilmember Harris that I made certain that we highlighted that. We selected a developer for the redevelopment of that site, which includes early childhood education center and 7 permanently affordable rental units above that. In addition to that, in furtherance of the need for additional outdoor space, we were able to acquire the vacant lot next door to that property, and that's been added to that development site. In the interim, we worked with Yaya to create a mural along that at that building, along the front gates there, just as an interim piece while we're moving forward in development. The other redevelopment framework property was 1141 Esplanade Avenue. We were awarded that property just this year. We issued a solicitation for the development of that. We've selected a developer. We're working with the developer now and identifying additional financing, and they will likely be applying for the next round of available funding with the Louisiana Tax Credit Association. We plan on working with that, with the city of New Orleans. We had lots of community engagement that took place with all of our development work that we're doing, that making certain we hear from the community to what they want, making certain that we're intentional as to what we're doing, but also respectful of the culture and what the expectation is that that they're expecting of us and we're expecting of our development partner. Again, that will result in 50 rental units, proposed development of $22 million. And that's just an overview of what that is. I know one of the other projects that we have been tasked with and working with our development partners in the New Orleans East neighborhood is the Six Flags site. We have major milestones this year that took place, one of which is we received the property from the Industrial Development Board back in March of 2023. The NORA Board of Commissioners immediately approved the Bayou Phoenix Master Plan in August of 2023. And just a few weeks ago, NORA's executed the ground lease for the property with Bayou Phoenix. And we're excited about having done that. And just like to highlight what our goals are for 2024. One of which is to increase the supply of affordable housing. How we intend on doing that is to provide property and financing and making that available to support the development of affordable rental and home ownership opportunities. The other piece is to support commercial corridor revitalization, where we invest in small scale commercial development projects and small businesses to help to promote those corridors and corridor-based business. One of the things that we have learned and that we have been really intentional on is making certain that when we work in a neighborhood, that we're not just focusing on the housing component, but we're also focusing on what we can do to create other amenities or the growth of that businesses that exist in and around those corridors. Another one's continuation of our green infrastructure work, either through expansion of the community adaptation program beyond the Gentilly neighborhood. Leveraging our investments is another one of our goals, again, where we utilize NORA and other public funds and property to catalyze some private sector development, and the other is to reduce our own property inventory over the course of the next 3 years. 2024 budget request is that you can see our 2023 approved budget. Our 2024 budget request totals about 21 million. 21.7 million. That reduction really has to do with some of our projects closed out during 2023, and we're having to start up new projects as a result of that. The more detailed budget as to some of our grants and some of the work that we're doing really begins with the Tulane Avenue development. We're working with the city. We received an award letter from the city to work with them on property that the city owns on Tulane Avenue to make that permanently supportive housing and make that available for the homeless population. The other is our ongoing maintenance, property disposition, and personnel that's covered there. The New Orleans Housing Investment Program is our affordable housing home ownership program that I referenced earlier. We have a double up duplex program, which is our version of a double project, whereby we are creating home ownership opportunities for individuals with a double. One side resided for the homeowner, the other side in the form of a 1-bedroom or studio apartment. What we are making key about that is making certain that the size of the unit, the overall house size allows for the property owner or the purchaser to yet still be able to obtain the financing. I spoke earlier about Tulane Avenue. The other one is our Reoccupy Main Street. One of the things that we determined during COVID that there were several businesses that were permanently shattered as a result of COVID. What this program is intending to do is to provide for grants for businesses that are moving into vacant properties along some of our commercial corridors that are near or in low to moderate income neighborhoods, and also expansion of any of those businesses along that. We recognize that as those businesses grow, so grows the neighborhood. And the other piece is that our small business marketing program, we learned through our small business assistance program that there was such a scattered approach of marketing businesses. So we wanted to be able to provide something that will allow businesses to get some targeted marketing expertise and strategy as to how they market their business so that they can continue to grow it. And the last thing I'd wrap up is other opportunities, as was mentioned, about how do we create more affordable housing opportunities, either work in commercial revitalization. I've highlighted some items that I think that I'd like to leave with the council for today as you think about how you might identify other funding. Some of the things that we talked about was system-built housing, which is 100 homes in 100 days. And when I talk about system-built housing, I'm talking about 3D printed houses. I'm talking about panelized housing. I'm even talking about some manufactured housing. If we take this affordable housing opportunity that exists before us to provide for that, we've got to talk about systems. How do we build more? How do we build faster? But how do we build smarter? And what I'm talking about is this over a period of time, but 100 homes in 100 days really is what I'm really highlighting. And the other thing is affordable resilient homes, to be able to create models of various interventions in addition to what we're doing with a fortified roofing, in addition to what we're doing with stormwater retention. But how do we build that entire resilient structure so that we can replicate that across the board? And the other thing is on the economic development front is corner commercial development. We've learned that there are lots of corner opportunities where businesses can be created and utilize those corner opportunities where there's a business downstairs and housing above. We were able to do that at the Bokerson project and working with that. And we see that as an opportunity for developing that. We've got lots of small businesses that come to us that look for other dollars so that they can develop not only their corner business, but provide for some housing opportunities. And again, an expansion of the small business assistance program that I talked about previously to the tune of perhaps another $1 million. Expansion of the CAP program citywide is, I'd like to wrap that up. Council Member Jeruso and the other council members. We have one other piece, which was the CAP parking lot as a potential other initiative that we can think about as we look at other opportunities that we can use to service citizens of New Orleans. Having said that, I'm opening up the floor for questions by any council members.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Thomas?
Well, first of all, thank you for your presentation. And Brenda, as I've listened to Ms. Brewer, I've listened to the conversation throughout the day, especially the one about affordable housing. You in this town, you may run nowhere now, but people know you've been one of the foremost housing experts in this town for quite some time. So I think it's going to be incumbent upon needing your leadership and your direction if we're going to have and especially make a noticeable or meaningful impact in that area. So I'm going to be looking to you to how do we partner and how do we collaborate. All those years of experience that you have just in housing, I understand your primary job is Nora, but we're going to need you for that.
Oh, I stand ready. All of it is my job. I'm really committed. I stand ready to do that.
I just want to echo Councilmember Thomas's sentiments. Thank you for all your hard work, long time work too, and staying in and being as patient with us today too, because we know
you have been patient with us.
It was a slog. Yeah, we appreciate it. All right. Mr. Burnside.
Thank you.
Everybody probably at the table knows this, probably nobody at the Diaz is, I tried to do a NOFA, and I had 2 lots in Pontchartrain Park that I was aiming for. I was going to build a couple tiny houses on them, and I went through all of it. Got an architect, got insurance, got this and got that, and got the other thing, and went out there and walked around and knocked on neighbors' doors and talked to people. And what I'm trying to say here is Nora allowed me to go all the way through the process, even though I did fail because of community opposition. I learned a lot. And I want to say thank you to Nora. It was generous of them to allow a idealistic fool to learn how many hoops there actually are, that jumping is important and you need help when you do it. And in the process, I learned that Nora has open board meetings that everybody can go to once a month or whatever they are. And I went to a couple where they had food. So not to try to bum rush all the Nora meetings for the sake of food, but I have to say some of it was quite tasty. The reception there was quite nice for me, even though the reception for me in Pontchartrain Park was perhaps not quite so nice. So there are several things I just want to touch on. They're all on my front page. I'm going to just jump all over the place because my brain isn't working so well anymore. I'm personally against 2 bedrooms. The reason I'm personally against 2 bedrooms is because Honorable Nika Morris has done a lot of work saying the city's actually saturated in 2 bedrooms, and what we don't have is 1 bedrooms and affordables. The idea of the 2 bedrooms is that when the period of affordability ends, of course, the owner goes in, changes the faucets to nice new ones, changes the bathtubs to nice new ones, puts in a new toilet, whatever, and then sells it on the market. And so a lot of this is about when the period of affordability ends, because our grandchildren are going to be in trouble. So we need to make things small because rich people really don't like small things, and maybe they'll leave them alone and let the poor people hang out there. I appreciate the Louisiana Firehouse. I walked by it for about 8 years of my life, and it's really nice that the city took that on, and it's even better to learn that there's 7 rentals apartments on the 2nd floor. Because I think, particularly in historic core, and this is where I've had an argument with my good friend and personal friend, Joe Giarrusso, I think dwellings above the ground floor are both New Orleans culture and really important for poor people, period. And this is where I may have an argument with my good friend, Councilman Thomas, but I think Six Flags has buildings that it could turn into 2-story buildings and put some affordable housing on the 2nd floor if there was the vision to pull that off. And I certainly do like the corner store idea where, again, you've got a business on the 1st floor and you've got apartments on the 2nd floor, because I go buy a newspaper every morning at a corner store on the corner of South Liberty and MLK. And every day I look up and there are empty apartments there that nobody's fixed up, nobody lives in. It's not worth the businessman's time. Insurance would change, all kinds of reasons why I might not do it, but my community suffers and I would like it to be helped. As far as the rest of it, I really appreciate seeing slide 57 and I want to say thank you. I also want to emphasize pie charts are beautiful things and that would be really cool. On page 56, it would be nice if more data was provided, like how many of these lots that you sold are still vacant lots. That would be nice to know. It would be nice to know that if there is housing there, whether that housing is rental or has been sold. Because I have experience with the city, basically, not necessarily through Nora, actually, but the city necessarily has a history of giving away land, particularly to churches. And then in my neighborhood, there was a church pastor who stole $1 million from his congregations, now in jail, and he owns property in my neighborhood. And it was a battle for years to get anything mowed. And it was only the city, through its lot mowing program, through code enforcement, that came and mowed, because the owner did not and could not be forced, because he was a nonprofit. You could put as many liens on his properties you wanted. You could never take it to sheriff's sale. So it would be nice to know where the balls have been dropped and where the cracks are, because people need help. And that's part of the business we're all in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Burnside proving the New Orleans mantra, if you want to brighten the mood, bring good food. So we appreciate it very much. Thank you all for being here, for your hard work, for your presentation.
Thank you very much, council members.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
I did, we're not here to brighten moods, let me just.
Thank you, Councilmember Jerusalem.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. We'll stand adjourned until 9:30 tomorrow. Thank you.